welcome to another video. I am here at my coffee corner where my coffee bar is and this fake fiddle leaf fig. I wanted to shoot a video today about how I got started writing and doing what I do for a living and things like that, from freelance to having an editing job for my day job. I'm wondering if I should turn this overhead light on, but I really hate the overhead light. I talked about this a little bit in my first video, but after I graduated college, I started doing there's something like hanging on my window. Very weird. I started doing like open mic nights to perform my poetry. Eventually that escalated to being like a featured reader at poetry readings and a featured performer and things like that. But that's how I built like poetry into publishing. But how I got into other publishing things like publishing essays and things like that was a little bit different. So one of the things that I did was I got connected to people in the writing community where I was living at the time. And that was really simple. I actually met somebody on Tinder who I went on a date with, and the date was fine. We never ended up like being together, but they were like the editor-in-chief of a zine called Steer Queer, and they were looking for a journalist to go around and interview queer people in the community about what they do. So they basically let me have that job. And so that was my first like venture into journalism, was Steer Queer. And I interviewed a friend of mine, Gia, who is a dancer and like a drag performer, and a few other people that were in the community at the time. Shout out to Kat, who gave me my first job in journalism. I don't think I ever put that on my resume for like journalism jobs because it can be like a little dicey. You never know who's homophobic or whatever. That was my first job in journalism. So I got connected through Tinder, which is like totally random, but that was one way that I got connected with other writers and editors in my community. Another way that I got connected was actually through Kat, a Steer Queer person. I had been joking a lot on Facebook about a bus that I had to ride into work, and this bus is like where I lived at the time. It was one of the buses that comes like every 3 to 5 minutes, and it was always packed. And so I would like joke about how much I hated riding that bus because it was never any room to sit. It was always like standing, crowded, clutching a pole, brushed up against somebody else's body. It was like that. And Kat was like, "Hey, have you ever heard of this person, Brian? He writes really funny like little missives on Facebook about the bus that you're talking about." So I followed Brian online. Actually, I think I sent him a friend request at first because that was before he kind of blew up. Brian is a memoirist, and like I think he's writing fiction as well now too. And at the time, he was like writing for some local publications, and we had like chat and like joke with each other and stuff. And he liked me enough to like put me on to a writing opportunity with a local paper called Public Source that did like special interest stories on people in the city. And so one of the first things that I wrote was about an experience that I had when I was in my early 20s with sexual violence. I don't know if I will put like a disclaimer that this is mentioned in this video. So I wrote a thing about that and like how it's tied to white supremacy and how the justice system is also like fails victims and things like that. So I wrote a thing about that. That actually won an award and won, I forget the name of the award, but it was like a specifically Black journalism federation in the city that I lived in, that would give out awards for like excellence in journalism and things like that. So it won one of those awards. And Brian also won that award as well for his piece that he wrote, which is also tied to like white supremacy and racism and things like that that were happening in the city at the time. So I got connected with him. I did that essay for a public source, and I also he was into writing fiction and nonfiction, specifically like shorter things, like microfiction and things like that. And he introduced me to someone named Rachel, who actually got me my job today. But Rachel was at the time, I don't know why I'm name dropping so much, but I'm not using last names for a reason. Rachel connected me with her literary magazine that she was editor-in-chief of, and like the founder of. And both of them are like not poetry writers, but Rachel was like, we have like a poetry section. We're interested in poetry. So if you want, if you have any poems you'd like to submit, send them to me and I'll send them along to our poetry editor, basically. So I did that, and that's how I got my like second or third poetry like publication opportunity. But yeah, connecting with Rachel was also really good because, again, I was complaining on Facebook, and I was talking about trying to find a job before I moved to where I live now. And finding a job was really hard. I was applying for like hundreds of jobs and getting nothing. Like I had applied for, like I said, hundreds of jobs, got maybe like 2 interviews, a few emails that were like, we're interested or like, we're not interested. Of those hundreds, very few rejection emails. Just straight up silence from a lot of these people, or like months or even like a year down the line, they'll send me a rejection. But yeah, Rachel saw me complaining on Facebook about the job market and was like, hey, I see that you're having trouble finding a job. I work at this place. It's good money. It's not like that hard of a work environment. And the work is pretty challenging, but not so challenging that you can't do it. So that's how I got my job that I have right now. So I connected with her through that and got my job. And I also wanted to talk about other opportunities for, getting started in journalism. I would say start local, like I did, sort of. So usually there are papers in your region or whatever that have like an opinion section or like local voices. They want to hear from people that live in the city or the town and have them do like a retrospective on their life or like their job, what's going on in their region, stuff like that. So if you can do that, usually that's a great place to start. I had a special interest story done on me because for a paper that I would later go on to work at. But before I started working there, they did a special interest story on me because they were doing an issue on pets, especially like weirder pets. And at the time I was keeping tarantulas. And so they did a story on me for that. And they had like a photographer come out and photograph me and my tarantula, who is now deceased, RIP, shout out to Della. And that was a way that I also like got myself on the radar for them because I later worked for them. I did an interview for them probably in 2021 and got the job in 2021 and started and was there for about 2 years, and then I moved to where I live now. And yeah, that was like also how I got really into local entertainment journalism, which opened the doors for like more national entertainment journalism. So I started with like creating these like highlights on local artists who were making music in the region that I lived in. So some of those people were my friends that I had performed with when I was first starting out and doing like variety shows and things like that. So some of the people were those people, some of the people were people that I met through those people. And then just like listening to, going to shows, listening to people perform their music live, who I hadn't met or hadn't had a connection with at all. Yeah, if you can get your foot in the door through local journalism first, that's like a really smart way to do it. And then that'll open doors for like national stuff. So I started working for the paper that I worked at in 2021. And before that, I was doing, I started working at a queer media site, I guess I would say. It was specifically geared toward queer women, and I worked there for about 4 years. It was 2019 to 2023, and that's how I got a lot of bylines as well. I would write pretty much whatever I wanted. I would write personal things, like personal essays. I would write or interview musicians and artists that I really admired and have them talk to me about their craft. I would write silly little fun quizzes or whatever I wanted, basically. And it was good while it was good. The pay was kind of, which if you work in independent media, the pay is always gonna be kind of suspect, I would say. But the work is usually like more catered to what you want to do, and more, some people like to say like noble work, but I don't necessarily like to use that term. I think that it's just like you may have more free reign with like what you can write about, but the pay is gonna be a lot less than what you would get at like a New York Times or something like that, which I've heard that even the pay for those sort of sites and stuff is not what it used to be anymore either. So journalism is not a field that you get into for the money, for sure. But if you want to get into it, this is how I did it, so I want to share. So yeah, I was working at that media site for 4 years, and once I like started getting into interviewing musicians, that opened doors for me a lot. Like, I still get albums sent to me all the time. I'm not really doing much of it anymore. I like write about it on my Substack sometimes. Like I just did a review for the Perfume Genius album that came out in this year, 2025. I think it was this year. I believe it was this year. Yeah. And I'm sorry, I keep looking off camera. It's like a habit, but basically, once I did that, I also just started interviewing musicians that I really liked. So I interviewed Julian Baker, who I love. I think she's incredible. Lucy Dacus. Valerie June was like one of my favorite interviews I've ever done. She was such a sweetheart. Black Belt Eagle Scout, a band that I really love, interviewed them. I was just talking about this on my Instagram, but I got an email when I was working at that paper about interviewing the Doobie Brothers, and I had like a scheduling conflict, so I couldn't make it work, but that would have been such a great opportunity for me just to break through to like that sort of niche market. Not that the Doobie Brothers are niche, but it's just like they have like a classic fan base around them, like people that are of all different races and backgrounds really like their music, especially that song, What a Fool Believes. It's like kind of like a meme about how good that song is. But yeah, I got it. Even about interviewing them, but couldn't do it. I'm trying to think of other people that I've interviewed. Fabi Reina from Reina Tropical. I interviewed her a couple times actually. And she's great. She's very like musically inclined and like intelligent and well-spoken, and like, I don't mean to say that in like a weird way, but like the way that she articulates making music is so, it makes sense to me, who is like not a musician. That's what I mean by like well-spoken. Yeah, so I started doing that, and like I said, it slowed down for me for over the past year. I left that media site that I was working for a lot of reasons, and then I like bounced around a couple different other like sites that were doing work sort of like that, but I couldn't make anything really stick for me, because I just felt very restless at the time and wanted to basically write for myself. I was tired of writing for other people. I wanted to write for myself, but it's why I started Substacks and things like that. But yeah, what else do I want to say about this topic? Start local, expand to national, connect with the people around you. This can be hard because I think that in literature and writing, there can be a spirit of competitiveness that is unsavory, to say the least. But a lot of people that I have connected with through writing have been very willing to put me on to opportunities. So one of my really good friends in like writing and music that I kind of came up with in the scene that in the city that I was living in is named Brittany, and they are a musician and like a poet and things like that. And they are always giving me opportunities to do writing, whether that's music or poetry or whatever. Like, they always put me on to opportunities, which I really appreciate. My friend Shelly, who I wrote at that media site with, is always sending me opportunities for jobs and things like that. So that spirit of competitiveness is there, but it's not always present in every individual that's in that field. Which I guess is true for a lot of other fields as well. But I feel like in writing, especially in poetry, I was just talking about this the other day with someone. In poetry, competitiveness is like very strong because it's such a small category. Like, for some reasons, as you can argue, people just aren't really reading poetry like they are fiction or like fantasy, romantasy, stuff like that. Like, people are way more inclined to pick up a book of like a romantic comedy sort of style than they are a book of poetry. And so poets don't get a lot of opportunities to share their work or get their work published, at least in my opinion. So yeah, that spirit of competitiveness is there, but you will definitely find people that are willing to work with you and help you out and extend a hand to lift you up, for sure. What else did I want to say? Be patient. It takes a long time to get to where you want to be. Like, for me, it's been pretty much the entire 8 years that I've been working toward my goal of getting a book published. That took that entire time. Like, I had different iterations of that manuscript out and about in the world, and they kept getting rejected. And it took me until like this year to get an acceptance on that manuscript. And then after college, graduating, getting into journalism was about another 3 to 4 years of getting to where I wanted to be with that. Actually, maybe even more than that, maybe like 5 years until I got where I wanted to be with journalism things. Yeah, I just think that it's easy to want to give up, especially if it's taking time. But if you stay with it and stick with it, you will get to where you want to be eventually. It may take longer than you want it to, but you will get there. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say on that. If you have any questions about anything, put them in the comments down below. Sorry, I have an eyelash in my eye. Comments down below. Also find me on Instagram. The link is in my link tree, which is in my channel description. I always accept DMs there. You might have to go through the request process if you don't follow me already, but I will see your DM eventually and respond to it. But yeah, thank you for watching this video. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.